Thanks for being with me here today, Brandon.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me, Pascale.
So let's start with your background. Who are you? What do you do? How did you get started?
Well, great question. I just had my 46th birthday, and I also celebrated my 24th year in direct selling, the industry. And how I got started was I grew up in what I like to call it the Cosbys, a family household where both my parents were successful. And they taught us, if you want to have financial freedom in America, there's a couple of things you've got to do. And that's go to school, get good grades, get a good, safe, secure job, a job that will take care of you for the rest of your life. Because that's what happened for my dad. He worked the same company for more than 40 years before he retired, starting off as an intern washing the company cars to ended up becoming the general manager and CEO of the largest water firm in the United States. And so for him, it was, you got to go to school and follow that path. And I did that. I graduated from Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. And I wish I could say that I was able to follow that same path, but my father was more of an outlier. He was more of an exception than the rule, because we quickly realized that dream of America is not reality. We realized that 97% of people who follow that path will retire broke, depending on family, government, and friends by the age of 65, 97%. And I was even laid off twice, once before I even graduated from school. So I made a decision that I got to do something different. I have to become an entrepreneur. And I jumped into the direct selling space. I still had to have a job to pay my bills. And I wish I could say it was a major success story, but it wasn't. I failed my first 10 years in direct sales. I didn't make any money. I couldn't sell anything to save my life. But I saw others that were doing it and having success. And I knew if they could do it, so could I. And so when I started, I actually learned something else that was more important than me making money at the time. Now, you couldn't tell me at that time. I wanted to make some money. But what I learned was personal development, mindset, changing, learning skills that they don't teach you in school. And once I finally figured it out and I learned how the skills on how to market, how to do sales, I started to have tremendous success. I became a top distributor in everything that I was doing, to the point where I was able to retire, fire my boss, and walk off my job on my 36th birthday, which happens to be last month, 10 years ago. It was Friday the 13th, 2012. I walked off my job. And a lot of people think that freedom is how much money you have. And that's not the case, because I knew people that had a lot of money, that were miserable, that were still working a job, they didn't like their lifestyle. But what I realized was when I walked off my job and I gave myself freedom, I call it my freedom day, where I can wake up when I'm finished sleeping. I come and go as I please. I don't have to answer to anybody, no other boss. I can do work where I want, regardless of how much money was in my bank account, as long as the bills were being paid. That was ultimate freedom for me. And I was so excited to have done that. And so that's what led my path to being an entrepreneur. And I'm very grateful for that.
So what led you to get into the crypto space?
That's a good question. It was a little bit more than 5 years ago. I got burnt out, so to speak, because the success I was having in the field, the business started to change. There was a lot more competition. I had to do a lot more work. The thought of residual income wasn't happening the way we wanted it to, and I decided, okay, I'm going to go on the corporate side for the direct selling space, and was vice president of sales and marketing for several companies. The companies said, look, Brandon, whatever you're doing out there in the field, can you come on the corporate side and teach everybody? And I did that, thinking that, okay, yeah, they're going to give me a set salary, but I ended up, it's like I'm back on the job again. And I said, okay, I don't want to do this, but I don't have the energy to go back to the field to do what I was doing. Let me get to what Robert Kiyosaki was talking about in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Cash Flow Quadrant, the investor quadrant. Let my money work for me. So I was looking at what industry could I do that in. I wasn't, stocks and stuff just didn't excite me. And I thought about real estate, but you need to have a lot of capital to really get started. I didn't really understand the Forex, but I kept hearing about this thing called Bitcoin and crypto, and people that I knew were making a lot of money in this. And so I said, okay, let me switch gears and see if I can learn about this whole Bitcoin crypto thing. And when I made that decision, I never looked back, and here I am today.
Fantastic. What were the challenges?
Well, the challenge is, one is believing it. And the first time I ever heard about Bitcoin was 2010. First time it crossed me, because I can be a little nerd and a geek. I love sci-fi stuff. I love computers. I love games, video games. And back in those days when Bitcoin, the only way you get it was through mining. So the nerd community started hearing about, we're mining Bitcoin. We're turning our computers into these mining machines to create Bitcoin. And the next time it crossed my path again was 2 years later, was at 2012. I think I was at Comic-Con down in San Diego, and there was a booth set up where these gamers were having their rigs turned into Bitcoin mining. And when I saw it, I was like, Bitcoin? To me, it was like, this is nothing but monopoly money being used by nerds who live in their mom's basement. Dungeons and Dragons, I just thought it was, nerd money that they're using. And then it crossed my path again in 2014, when a business partner of mine in Japan, she owns a restaurant called the Pink Cow. And her restaurant made national news. It's the first restaurant to have a Bitcoin ATM machine. And the funny thing is, on Facebook, I congratulated her on Facebook. And every year, Facebook gives an anniversary or memories from a year ago. That pops up every year to remind me that I had an opportunity to get Bitcoin in 2014, and I didn't get it. The first time I actually did was 2016, because people that I knew started making a whole lot of money, not just a little bit, but 7 figures in Bitcoin. And so the first challenge was understanding it. So I asked them, said, what is this Bitcoin stuff? How does this work? And their answer was, I don't know. It just keeps going up. Understanding what Bitcoin is it real? Can I use it? Is the government going to shut it down? Is it commodities? Is there any regulation? It's brand new. So that was the first major challenge, understanding it, onboarding it, and figuring out how it works.
And that's what you cover for us in Elevate. I should say, as a side note, you've got great introductory videos there explaining what it is and explaining what cryptocurrency trading is. So what was your success?
Well, my success it was 2016 when I bought Bitcoin for the first time. I didn't know what it was. It was worth $640 a coin. And I bought 3 of them. And that was around beginning of October 2016. I forgot about it. December rolls around, and as an entrepreneur, for me, December's always been my most difficult month. People are taking vacation, not too many sales is happening. That's my most expensive month for personal business, with birthdays and Christmas and taxes, getting ready for tax returns and all that. So I was looking for ways of having some extra money, and I saw Bitcoin went to $870 a coin. I was like, wait a minute, I bought these 3 for $640. So I sold those 3 Bitcoin for Christmas presents. And I thought I was a genius. I said, wow, I made a good investment. I bought for $640, I sold for $870. 1 year later, Bitcoin was worth $20,000 a coin. Had I held on to those 3 Bitcoin, that's $60,000 worth that I had my hands on. So going into 2017, I said, I need to learn about this stuff. And there was no one around to teach me what Bitcoin was all about. So I went to Google and YouTube, and I do not advise you to do that. When I did that, I realized that the 50% of the information that I received was incorrect. But I did learn 2 things that changed my life. The first, that blockchain technology is going to disrupt every single industry on the planet today, whether we like it or not, believe it or not, trust it or not. Our opinion is irrelevant. The second thing that I learned is that cryptocurrency represents the greatest economic shift in wealth in the history of mankind for the most amount of people. And that's important because there's been other generation or revolutions in economy in the past, the gold rush, the third industrial revolution, the internet boom, but not everybody had an opportunity to get involved in those things. But now all you need is a cell phone, access to the internet, and a willingness to learn. And it doesn't matter if you're a man, woman, or child. It doesn't matter your sex, religion, or creed, education, how much money you have. You only need those things. And so when I figured that out, I got started not with a whole lot of money. My first big success was I got started, it was August 31st, 2017 with $30 in my education. And I took that $30 and flipped it into six figures in 3.5 months by the end of 2017. So that was my first real big success in crypto.
That's amazing. Amazing. So what is ILCA?
ILCA, well, that stands for, it's my name, Ivy League Crypto Academy. In 2018, Bitcoin reached its height in December 2017 up to $20,000. Then it started to come down, and it came down hard. And when Bitcoin went down, all tokens went down with it. My education, I actually made more money when the market was coming down than I did when it was going up. But everybody else was losing a lot of money. And so I said, wow, if they had education, then they would have been like me, they would have been safe. And so a company approached me and asked if I could create crypto educational content for training materials. And I was reluctant at first to do that. They said, yeah, this is much needed, Brandon, the way you're able to explain things. So I created crypto education. And the first batch I did, I thought it was perfect, but it failed. It failed real big because it was too technical. If you ever go to a blockchain event or a Bitcoin conference and you sit out in the audience and you listen to the people on stage, most people in the audience aren't going to understand a word that they're saying because they speak in, I call it NASA language, the scientific nerd jargon that goes over everybody's head. So I said, but that's how I created. I had so much knowledge and information. I wanted it to be perfect. And I remember I showed my mom, and my mom was going through she was like, I don't get it. And so that's when I had a light bulb moment. I said, okay, I need to redo this. Let me do this in a way that my mom can understand. I did my courses, and I did it pop-up book style, and I have a background in teaching, and everybody learns differently. One, people don't want to feel like they're going back to school. They want to feel like there's something that they can do on their own time, and it's not going to interfere with their day-to-day activities. It's got to be kind of fun and engaging. So I created the courses in a way with streaming video that anybody feels they can listen to and they can understand it. And as my mom can get it, then I knew I had a hit. So I created the educational content, and I became a consultant for different crypto companies that wanted to hire me to come to their conventions to speak to their people about what is Bitcoin. We started doing Bitcoin boot camps around the country. This is before COVID. We were able to travel and do a lot. And then I had my videos that people the businesses could use. But I said at the end of the day, they're using my content, but they're not doing it correctly. Because those businesses, their job was they're trying to sell their product, they're trying to sell their services, which is fine. And education was secondary to them. So I said, if I want this really done right, I got to do it myself. So I created my own educational platform, which is called Ivy League Crypto Academy.
So how do you keep your crypto safe when everything's going down? Is it similar to fiat currency where you diversify?
Absolutely. Well, here's the beautiful thing about crypto. And a lot of people think that Bitcoin and crypto is a new form of money, and they're looking at it as a financial thing, and it's actually not. You need to look at it as technology as an asset, like real estate. When somebody buys a home for $500,000 and they want to sell it for a profit, you always sell when the market is going up. So now that $500,000 home might be worth $700,000 10 years later. But what happens when the market goes down? Well, you don't sell your home because you bought it for 500,000, but your home's now only worth 300,000. Now, you didn't lose the home, you just lost value of the home. If you sell it at $300,000, you lost money. But you just hold the house until the market turns around, and it always does. It always goes up and down until it goes back up. Bitcoin's the same way. When the market is up, your value rises. When the market starts to come down, your value goes down, but you still have the same amount of Bitcoin. There's only going to be 21 million ever in existence. So inflation can never happen to it because there's never not going to be new money come to the space. However, this, show you this, people that have fiat money, the fiat money that you have, what happens when the government decides to print more of it? Well, the value of what you're holding goes down because there's more in circulation. Whether you're with me, this is your buying power. You go to the grocery store to buy something, and what you used to be able to get for $100 at the store, you're now getting a lot less items for the same amount of money. So Bitcoin and crypto is inflationary proof, and it's a hedge. When the entire economy may be going down, inflation, gas prices, putting money in your savings account, you're actually losing money. You can use crypto and Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation to save and protect your value, just as people use real estate, they use gold and silver, precious metals, and art. Same concept. So switch from thinking Bitcoin and crypto from a financial standpoint, but look at it as new technology. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And because it is technology, and we've seen the news recently, you have these crypto bridge attacks. So I think that makes people nervous and might prevent them from getting into it, because you're thinking, well, if I put my money in Bitcoin, then I could lose all of it overnight. Whereas if I had fiat currency, yes, it might go up and down, but it's still there.
Well, that is a good concern. And this is what happens when you're not educated in the space, which is why I always say education is key. Education is everything. We're used to the modern banking system where when we get paid, we put money in our bank account and the bank is our custodials of our money. So it's insured, we know it's safe. Even if the bank gets robbed, our money is still insured and backed by the government or the Federal Reserve. Well, Bitcoin and crypto has taken us back to the days before we had that security, where you are now your own bank. You have control over your finances. Like my grandpa, he didn't really trust the banks. He wanted the cash and he had it either under his mattress, under his pillow, or bury it out in the backyard somewhere, right? He always wanted to have access to physical cash because he said the bankers can always rob him of his money and steal it. And so much so it's kind of true where the bank can freeze your account, the government can garnish your wages, they can, if you don't have physical control of your money, you don't have control of your money, the bank does. My grandpa taught me a lesson when I was young. My favorite movie around Christmas time is with George Bailey Savings and Loans, It's a Wonderful Life, old black and white movie. And George Bailey was always trying to leave town, but he had a family business, the Bailey Savings and Loan. And when the Great Depression hit and there was a run on the bank, everybody ran to the bank to get their money, to get their cash. And the banks, they're like, your money's not here. But what do you mean? I deposited my money. Well, the bank took the money and invested in this business, invested in your neighbors getting a loan to build their business, to build their house. So there's no physical cash sitting there. And I learned that story. That's my grandpa. You put your money in the bank there, you may not have access to it. They can put chains on the bank door. The ATM machines are go dry. So he kept the cash. Well, with crypto, we have what's called crypto wallets. Now you can have what's called a custodial wallet that acts like a bank, like Coinbase, for example. They're registered in the United States. Even if Coinbase gets hacked, you're not going to lose all of your funds. But you don't have control over it ultimately. Coinbase does. What Bitcoin allows us is to have private wallets. I could have something like this, for example, where I could put all of my Bitcoin and crypto there and it never be hacked. But it's in my control. It's never going to get stolen. I have control on what I want to do with it, but you've got to go through education to be able to take on that type of responsibility. And a lot of people
So if I'm understanding you correctly, it's where you place your Bitcoin. So you don't put it where it could be attacked and lose your money in a bridge hack.
Exactly.
Okay, that's very helpful. I didn't know that. I've read those headlines. I'm like, oh my God. So education is always key. We can't know everything. And that's why we have experts like you. So thank you for that.
No problem.
I have one last question, which is not crypto related at all. If you could have dinner with anyone dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oh, wow. If I could have dinner with anybody, dead or alive, you know, depending on different stages of my career, it would be a different answer. Because one would be my grandfather, and it would be not to learn wisdom from him, but to be able to show him what is possible that he wasn't able to live to see. He wasn't alive to see the very first African-American president of the United States. You know, he wasn't alive to see what his grandson was able to accomplish, because his old saying was, if you work hard, if whatever you do, become the hardest worker at it. And he will say, if that means you're a street sweeper or a train conductor or an elevator operator. Now, think about the things he just said. Yeah. He didn't say CEO. He didn't say, you know, airline pilot or those things, because of the era he lived in. And so it would be more of, Grandpa, look how far we've come, and look at what your descendants are able to do. On a personal development side, one of the individuals who had the most impact in my life is Jim Rohn, who passed away. And as a mentor, I never had the opportunity to meet him personally. And I'd love to just sit there and pick his brain. Ultimately, I'll pick his brain. Yeah. The nerd in me, it would be Nikola Tesla. You know, I think he was 100 years ahead of his time. And I like, it's hard. Then, you know, the Christian me, Jesus Christ, you know, but I can't, you know, that's an interesting question. It just depends on, you know, my mood at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. With that, great answers, great choices. So thank you very much for being here. Anyone listening, thanks for watching, listening. If you have any questions for Brandon, I suggest you find him on LinkedIn. Are you on Twitter? Where's the best way to get him?
Facebook, LinkedIn. I never look at LinkedIn, but Facebook is mostly where I am. But I do have an Instagram, YouTube. You just type in Brandon Ivey Bitcoin and I'll pop up everywhere. Yeah, and you're a fantastic educator. So thank you so much for your time, and enjoy your Freedom Friday. Thank you.